President Trump visits the border, the pitch for a new wall in Texas 20 days into the government shutdown.
A promise was made to us that we would get health care for as long as the rivers ran and the grass would grow. And as far as I'm concerned, the river's still running and the grass is still growing.
The government shutdown affects some communities harder than others, why it's a big concern for local reservations.
When I ran for city council, I never expected to run for mayor.
But now she's running. Councilmember Barbara Breed talks to KPBS about her campaign in a growing field for San Diego mayor. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebone Monet. President Trump continues his push for a new border wall today by visiting Texas. He says declaring a national emergency might be his only option.
And crime and all of the problems that they cause by not having a barrier, then you will see what happens with national emergency, which I can do very easily, and there's no question it holds up.
Declaring a national emergency could allow President Trump to use military funds to pay for the wall. The president wants $5 billion, but Democrats in Congress will not support the plan. Tonight in downtown San Diego, there is a demonstration put on by people calling for an end to the government shutdown. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman spoke with one of the event's supporters, and he joins us now. Matt?
Yeah, Ebony, we're here downtown right outside the federal building, and there's going to be at least one federal employees union here representing at this rally, the American Federation of Government Employees. And like you just mentioned, we had a chance to talk to one of their national vice presidents, and he told us he represents over 40,000 workers. Now, these include Border Patrol agents, ICE agents, and TSA workers. And he says that no one should go without pay and that President Trump is disrespecting these workers.
Ultimately, he doesn't care about them. He cares about himself, and this is just another, another way of protecting himself, for the future. Because how can you say in one breath, I support their mission, I support these folks, I love these folks, but it's okay that I'm not going to pay them until I get what I want.
Now, this rally's about an hour out from starting. As you can see over there, they have some speakers set up with a microphone, and this is being put on by a group called Citizens Oversight. They say that it's just unfair what President Trump is doing, and they want him to just reopen the government, get these workers paid so they don't miss a paycheck this week. And this rally, we don't know how many people are going to be out here. There's a number of them, a couple of hundred of them who say they're interested on social media, but it's going to get kicked off right here at 6 p.m. Live downtown, Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Thanks, Matt. Health care for San Diego County's 18 federally recognized tribes is caught in the crossfires of the government shutdown. The agreement dates back to 1787, but Southern Indian Health Council leaders say they're depleting their reserves to keep the doors open. Can you tell me how this partial shutdown has taken a toll?
Well, the first thing I got to say is that IHS is already classically underfunded for our clinics. So there's a saying in Indian country that don't get sick past August because there won't be any funding to cover you. So we already sit at a pretty strong disparity or pretty strong shortfall as far as our own funding. Now, this closure is making things worse. I mean, it doesn't help at all.
And so are you at the point where you're having to limit your services or turn anyone away?
We haven't done so yet. And we're concerned about that. As the shutdown goes forward, we're very concerned and we're worried about, either having to cut back on services or maybe, limit the people that we can use. As
soon as the shutdown happened, was that just like a stop payment or what happened?
We were allowed to continue because we do have some reserve funds. This isn't the first time this has happened, so. Out of caution and out of, I guess, decent business practices, we've managed to save some money, but it's not a lot. And if this shutdown continues, that's when it's going to be a difficult situation for us that, we have to pare down services.
If the partial government shutdown does continue, can you share with me your plan?
I think, hopefully we don't have to, but we might have to limit services. As I mentioned before, the comment was, don't get sick after August because there might not be any funding, to help you. Now, with the government shutdown, that makes that even worse. We don't want to limit our services to our constituents or our community, but that's going to be the case if we don't get our money.
What's your reaction to the reason behind this partial government shutdown?
It's unnecessary. We have so many other priorities that are more important. People are being effective unnecessarily, and that really disappoints me. To be able to potentially deny services to somebody who's not feeling well, or maybe somebody who's hurt, it upsets me because it doesn't need to happen. This is all very unnecessary.
The fact that this is happening to indigenous communities across the country who rely on this funding, how important is this service that is provided?
It's essential. For the longest time, health wasn't provided to a lot of Indian country. And now that we've gotten to a point where we can provide health care to our Indian people and now have it taken away, once again, unnecessarily, it's potentially devastating. A promise was made to us that we would get health care for as long as the rivers ran and the grass would grow. And as far as I'm concerned, the river's still running and the grass is still growing.
Thank you so much. A statement from IHS regarding the shutdown reads in part, tribal health programs and urban Indian organizations are authorized to continue operation. However, contracts with these organizations to provide health services cannot be paid by IHS during a lapse in appropriations. Crowded emergency rooms can be overwhelming and sometimes dangerous for seniors. KPBS health reporter Susan Murphy tells us about a first-of-its-kind ER offering seniors specialized care and a dignified experience.
Inside the UC San Diego Emergency Department in La Jolla, a new wing specially designed for seniors 65 and older.
Soundproof walls, better lighting. The beds are much more comfortable for prolonged stays if seniors need to be in bed for a prolonged period of time.
Here, there are no noisy machines, glaring lights, or slippery floors. Rather, an ambiance of comfort, calm, and healing. Dr. Vishal Tolia is director of the Gary and Mary West Senior Emergency Care Unit.
We are now seeing almost 35% of our patients over the age of 65. And so what we've realized is that that population, similar to the pediatric population, has very specific needs.
And it's a population that's growing rapidly. The State Department of Finance estimates the number of Californians 65 and older will climb by 2.1 million in the next 7 years. By 2030, the number of people 65 and older is expected to double in San Diego County. Dr. Tolia says that means more seniors coming to the ER who often have multiple symptoms and require complex care.
They can present with infections, not with your typical symptoms that a younger adult would have, but weakness, dizziness, confusion, things of that nature. And oftentimes, those vague symptoms don't really require an admission to the hospital, but require some upfront specialized care.
The senior patients are treated by a team of doctors and nurses with special training in geriatric medicine.
So they look for things like fall risk, depression, cognitive impairment, review of medications. They work with physical therapy, pharmacy, and all these other services that we bring to the emergency department.
The goal is to avoid unnecessary hospitalizations and readmissions, and instead provide a full assessment and treatment, followed by a safe transition to a home environment with proper resources. The geriatric unit is funded in part by a $12 million grant from local philanthropists Gary and Mary West. Their foundation and nonprofit West Health plans to use the facility as a model.
We're really excited about being able to populate this throughout the state of California and then taking the best practices and implementing them in different medical centers across the United States.
The senior care unit currently has a dozen rooms with plans to open 8 more this year. Susan Murphy, KPBS News.
Governor Gavin Newsom wants his first budget to invest in housing and community colleges. Among the details announced today, $1.3 billion would be spent on homeless initiatives. Some money would go directly to local governments for shelters, but to keep it, these governments would need to meet state goals. Governor Gavin Newsom also wants to spend $400 million on community colleges to achieve his goal of 2 years free tuition. The governor's budget also includes nearly $2 billion to improve access to early education. But KPBS education reporter Megan Burke says some improvements are already coming to San Diego.
A 2017 law allowed the San Diego County Office of Education to tailor state rules around child care subsidies to better fit San Diego parents. The changes were approved in December and will roll out soon. Among them, parents will no longer have to certify their income annually for preschool subsidies. The rule had resulted in some parents losing their subsidies if they received even a modest raise at work. Lucia Garay with the county office hopes the changes will lead to more parents accessing child care subsidies.
We were looking at $11 million a year unused in our county. And what we're hoping is that with full implementation, there will be full use of the money allocated to our county.
The changes do not address one of the biggest barriers to accessing preschool. Most programs are only offered half-day. Governor Gavin Newsom has proposed $125 million to chip away at that problem. Newsom himself is a working parent who was famously upstaged by his toddler during his inaugural address Monday. Garay says it was a sign of good things to come for early education.
If there's a reality about a working parent, like, there it is.
Megan Burks, KPBS News.
At the start of the year, a new law took effect that requires landlords accept rent from third parties. Back in July, KPBS North County reporter Allison St. John covered the struggle some renters face even if they receive outside help.
Casey Motes is a single mom who became homeless after back problems put her on disability. She spent weeks living in her car before finding a place to live. When she got money from a rental assistance program called Rapid Rehousing, she couldn't find a landlord who would accept the government housing voucher.
I called so many apartments, and nobody takes third-party checks, and that's what Rapid Rehousing is a third-party check. I guess Section 8 would be a third-party check also. They don't take them. Nobody takes them anymore.
The waiting list to get a federally subsidized Section 8 housing voucher is 8 to 10 years. Rapid rehousing is much faster, but finding a landlord who will accept it could take months.
Then I found one apartment before this one that did, and they wanted me to make 4 times the amount of, $1,650. So 4 times, if I was making 4 times that, I wouldn't need help. I'm a single mom, so it doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Landlords hold the keys, literally, to who gets to rent an apartment. And if you're a homeless person, it's sometimes hard to find a landlord who's willing to take a chance on you.
And a lot of landlords figure, why should I take the risk, or why bother taking the risk when I have such a large pool I can go, pick from.
Yeah. Eddie and Nancy Walker manage the Quince Park Apartments in Escondido, where Motes finally found a home. Because the rental market is tight, the Walkers could simply refuse to consider renters who've been homeless, but they don't.
I guess is what Nancy and I stand for. We believe that everyone is entitled to a second chance. Circumstances in life happens. Sometimes it's no fault of your own. But if you're earnest about it and come to us and sit down and full disclosure and tell us about your situation and stuff, Nancy and I usually go by after they leave, what's your gut?
Walker says 90% of the time they get it right, but not always.
When Nancy says they didn't pay or I know they didn't pay, I'll first have what I call a come to Jesus meeting. And we sit down and say, okay, what's going on? And then listen to what they have to say. Because the bottom line is this is still a business, and the owner is in it not to be philanthropic all the time, but he's in it because it's an investment and it's a business. So therefore, and the bottom line is you have to pay your rent.
Yeah, you can't live here for free.
But the Walkers know that if a renter has a Section 8 housing voucher, that could cover as much as 3/4 of the monthly rent.
If they aren't paying, you're not going to have to go after them for all the rent. You're just going to have to go after them for maybe 1/4 of the rent or something. So you have that much guaranteed. So that is a plus. It's definitely a plus.
Both the city and the county of San Diego are offering landlords incentive programs to encourage them to help house people who are homeless. Some programs, like Rapid Rehousing, offer the security deposit and several months' rent. Other programs offer landlords the security of up to $5,000 if their place is damaged.
Because for the most part, they're great, but once in a while you get somebody and oh my gosh, you're really eating it because they have destroyed the place.
The San Diego County Housing Authority says fewer than 5% of participating landlords have ever had to use damage mitigation money. But the Walkers wish the guarantee was more widely available, even if they don't have to use it. The city of San Diego is now expanding damage mitigation guarantees from veterans' housing programs and is offering it to landlords who work with anyone who was formerly homeless, plus contingency funds for unexpected rent delays.
Well, we're repainting the whole apartment, including the ceilings, because the prior resident smoked here, and so we've got to redo the ceilings and everything else. And we're going to brighten the color up. It's going to be more of like an eggshell color.
Walker says paying landlords incentives and the security of a regular government-backed rent check is one thing, but from his perspective, the most important thing is when a tenant comes with a recommendation from a caseworker.
I think it's very important because if you have a difficult, let's say, veteran or anybody in the system, and you sit down with a caseworker and you have a family meeting, so to speak, then we can talk about the issues and what the problem is, and then come up with a plan.
Moat says she got help from a caseworker at Interfaith Community Services in Escondido, and that helped her keep going when nothing seemed to be working.
It's so sad, like you don't understand how depressing it is to know that you are given this help and you're given this chance, but you don't have that. You don't have any apartments anywhere that are willing to help you. And it does make you feel like you're failing as a parent, and it's very depressing. But I was lucky to get here. I'm extremely happy to be here.
The city of San Diego has earmarked $6.6 million over 3 years to encourage landlords to accept housing subsidies. The goal is to find 3,000 permanent homes for families who are currently homeless. But so far in the first year, just 263 landlords have signed up. Alison St. John, KPBS News.
Rain is expected this weekend and into next week. Dajia Swad has details in tonight's forecast.
As we continue into this forecast, the main thing to note is our pattern is overall changing. Usually moisture has been shifting its way in towards Washington and Oregon, but now there's a high pressure system there, and that high pressure system is blocking the moisture from moving to the northwest and instead is moving it in towards the southwest. So California, we have a better chance for rain and even some high elevation mountain snow. Here's a look at the satellite and radar from the past several hours. Clouds really building in off the coast there, and we'll continue to see that make its way inland here tonight. In addition, we're still under a high surf advisory until 10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So all those cities and counties highlighted in the blue will be noticing still rough surf and some potential for some coastal flooding. We'll be becoming cloudy tonight here in San Diego with a low of 51. Out towards Oceanside, cooling down to 42 in Borrego Springs as well, and 34 in Mount Laguna. Now, as we head into your Friday, we're still dry to start in San Diego. Rain will begin to advance in towards California, out towards San Francisco, eventually in towards Los Angeles. Will eventually make its way in towards San Diego, but late Friday. For us, clouds really start to build in towards Oceanside with a high of 64, topping off at 65 in San Diego, in the lower 70s in Borrego Springs, and 51 in Mount Laguna with a better chance for some sun due to your higher elevation. Now into this weekend, that's when that moisture continues to rush its way into Southern California. So we will be talking about some rain to continue into your extended forecast. tomorrow, still on the dry side for the start of the day with a high of 64. Then as we head into your Friday night, Saturday, that rain begins to pick on up. And then by Saturday afternoon, tapering off. We'll get a brief break into your Sunday, and then we'll get another push of moisture for the early week here across the coast as well as the inland areas. Once again, track overall changing, so we get a better chance for some rain. Now, as you talk about mountain snow, not going to be a whole lot of it, really about 6,000 feet and above. Mostly going to be some snow showers, not enough for accumulations, but we do notice our temperatures dropping down into the 40s out towards the mountains for your extended forecast. Once again, moisture available to us for Friday late night into your Saturday, then another chance into the early week. Reporting for KPBS News, I'm your meteorologist, Dajia Swad. Back to you.
It's less than 2 years away, and San Diego leaders are already throwing their hats into the mayor's race. Councilwoman Barbara Bree sits down with KPBS News to chat about why she's running for the city's top post.
From having been on the council for 2 years, I see that there's a lack of leadership in our city, and I believe I bring a unique perspective because I've been a high-tech entrepreneur, I've been a journalist, I've started and led organizations like Athena San Diego and Run Women Run, and I would bring that perspective to leading our city. So my priorities are about keeping our community and our city safe, clean, and prosperous. Public safety is the #1 responsibility of local government. We gave significant pay raises to our police officers, so we're addressing our recruitment and retention. Fire safety is now a major issue. Fire season is 12 months a year, so we need to pay a lot of attention to that. Clean to me is now about moving forward with community choice energy, with pure water, which we have voted on, and in making sure we keep our beaches, bays, and canyons clean. And prosperous is about the innovation economy and about creating more housing, which will also address our homeless issue. When I ran for city council, I never expected to run for mayor. I thought I would do 2 terms on the city council and then I would do something else and stay engaged in the community. What came along was Soccer City. I opposed Soccer City early. I was the first elected official to oppose it because I believed it was a bad deal for San Diego taxpayers and residents. And it was my business experience that gave me the confidence to oppose it. After I opposed it, I was a new council member. I was opposing something that was supported by a popular mayor. A lot of people came forward and said they'd never seen a new council member do something this courageous, and they encouraged me to consider running for mayor. So one of my vision for our city comes out of my many years as a tech entrepreneur and my long-term support for the arts. It's full steam ahead. So it's the literal science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, and why it's important to bring it to every neighborhood. You know, I spent 30 years in the innovation economy. It drives our entire economy. It creates the highest paying jobs and the ancillary jobs around it. And listen, our employers aren't going to have the workforce they need if we don't do something different in San Diego. And we have to be concerned that we're training all of our residents to be able to access these good jobs. I think you know a little bit about my background. My parents got divorced when I was a teenager. My mother went to work full-time at a job where she was paid less than the comparable men, and there was nothing she could do about it. She went out to buy a house she could easily afford and still had to get a male friend to co-sign on the mortgage. My first husband left me in 1993. I had 2 daughters, 8 and 11. I think I've had experiences that are relevant to everybody in San Diego, and I want to bring that to being our mayor.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, President Trump visits the southern U.S. border as the government shutdown stretches into day 20. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Whether you're a fan of punk, classical, or a cappella, it's going to be a very musical weekend. Here to give us details is KPBS arts editor Nina Guerin.
The Casbah is one of San Diego's most treasured music venues, a small club by the airport where bands like Weezer and the White Stripes have performed. It's also a place that gave local artists their start, including Blink-182, Jewel, and Jason Mraz. 2019 marks the Casbah's 30th anniversary, and the month-long celebration includes a mix of throwback performances, local music showcases, and other events. This weekend features the reunion of one of San Diego's most beloved punk bands, the Dragons, as well as fellow hard-rocking outfit Uncle Joe's Big Old Driver. Get out your flannel shirts and see you there. Things are pretty exciting over in the classical music world, too. This weekend, the San Diego Symphony welcomes the debut of its music director-designate, Rafael Payare. He appears as part of the Symphony's Hearing the Future Festival, where he will conduct Mozart and Tchaikovsky tonight and perform alongside his wife, cellist Elisa Weilerstein, over the weekend. Finally, if you're a fan of Pitch Perfect, here's your chance to see the roots of a cappella music with Yale's esteemed Whiffenpoofs. Formed in 1909, the Whiffenpoofs is the country's oldest collegiate a cappella group. The Poofs are a group of incoming seniors who take a year off to tour the world, performing a cappella versions of popular and traditional songs. And for the first time in its history, the Whiffenpoofs have welcomed a female member. Sofia Campo Amor was admitted into the group in 2018, and she will be at the San Diego performance. For KPBS Arts, I'm Nina Guerin.
You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.